So here we are. This is 127. And today we're going to cover web templates and .NET. And I have some projects to do it. So let's start talking about web templates, which are here. All right. So let me see. I guess that's right. All right. So in the old days, you would have web pages like mine that are just static files sitting on a server. So you're just looking at an HTML file and an image that's just sitting there. This was Web 1.0. It's very old-fashioned. It's very simple, and this is what you get with just a web server like Apache. But modern, and the only thing this time that determined what you'd see is the protocol, which is HTTPS usually, then the domain, which is the part here with the name of the company .com or .info or something. Then you'd have a folder name, and then you'd have a file name, and it literally means that on the server connected to this domain, there is a folder with this name, and in that folder there is a file with that name, so the URL actually describes the real path to find a specific file on the server. That's the original old-fashioned way the web worked. And that's called direct mapping, where the URL directly maps to the actual folders and files. But the problem is, as companies get big and they merge with other companies and they have advertising partners and everything, it often is not practical to have this direct mapping. So just like you move from local area networks to virtual local area networks because the logical layout of your network should not be constrained to match the physical layout of the wires, the mapping of your website doesn't need to match the actual folder structure on one server. And so a modern website like Amazon has all these components that are drawn from different servers using different languages and such. And so you have modern web apps. You have post requests, send data to the server, you have sessions and cookies, and you're going to have thousands of concurrent connections. So the modern websites are made with routing and templates. Now the routing takes the requested URL and uses it to find the code that's going to run on the server. So if I go to a website like foo.com/bar, instead of meaning you go to the default root directory here and look for a directory called bar, it knows to go find a function called handle bar. There's going to be a mapping where part of the URL is used to tell it which code on the server is used, and it isn't as simple as just entering that folder. So Django, for example, would have this kind of thing, and it uses regular expressions. So this would call find user and the ID here, using this regular expression. The /users indicate that this is a request for information about a user, and the next parameter is a number here. So now it will call the display user function, which is mapped to the user's what looks like a folder, and the ID is picked out of here. So even though this looks like a folder and a subfolder, it's interpreted on the server according to this logic, and that's what's called routing, where it's specified in a configuration file how to determine what function to use and what parameters to pass to that function. Here's how it looks in Flask. You have a route, user's ID, which is an integer, and then that will be this function, display user of that ID. So that's how it's coded on the server. And here it's how it's coded in ASP.NET. You'd have controller equals home, action equals index, ID. And so if you have a path like product details 5, it will determine the controller is products, the action is details, and the ID is 5. So it will go to a controller tied to this keyword and pass in these parameters. So templates will then dynamically generate HTML, figuring it out by running these scripts and fetching data from databases or other parameters to build the page you see. So you can have Flask plus Jinja 2 is the software used to do this, and your Flask app looks like this. It's got a app main folder, it's got a Python script here, and it has templates in here for various pages, like index and 404. All right. So this means you have meta characters. You have placeholders. For example, you might want to put the user's name up in the corner. Well, you're not going to hard code the name because each user has a different name. You're going to put in a placeholder like this, curly brace %, then something like name of a parameter, then % curly brace. So you have these various special combinations of characters which indicate metadata. These are tags which will be filled in with data later. So you have this file here, hello bracket bracket username, end bracket bracket. And if you put that in, index.html, then it will fill this username in with the username that it derived from some parameter, probably in the URL, perhaps in a cookie or something. Anyway, that's the point. That's how it works. And we're going to play with these metadata injections. Then in ASP.NET, it looks like this. You have templates and then a template configure and template JSON. You just have the same information in different files, telling it how to interpret the request and find the right script to run to create the response. And here's what the template.json file looks like. You have just a lot of classifications here and a lot of parameters in it. And here's more of it. And this is where you have these things like package type, package version, package ID, and so on. Just a lot of XML data that is used as part of the process of routing on the server to figure out what to run. So there's a lot of technologies that do this, and I only know them in a very vague way. I haven't used these much. You can tell from my website, I never learned how to use these modern frameworks, but this is how everybody does it. You got a front-end framework, which is how it looks to the end user, and you have a back-end framework, which is the scripts that run on the server. And there's a nice list of popular ones. This is from a couple of years ago, but I checked, and the most current list shows that these are still pretty much the most common ones. So on the front end, you have Angular, Ember, Flutter, React, and Vue.js, and they all have various advantages, like these is fast development, but very difficult to learn. This one here is small and fast, but it doesn't have too many components, too many stable components, and it's too flexible. You know, so this is what you'd have for the front end, designing what that the end user sees, and on the back end, on the server, you use one of these frameworks. Django, Express.js, Ruby on Rails, Spring, or Symfony are top ones, and they each have their virtues. So you learn how to code in these to make a modern website. And here's another chart of the top framework technologies. PHP, ASP, Express, Node.js, Ruby on Rails. So PHP is still quite big. All right, so having talked about that, I'm going to demonstrate this project next, but I think first we'll do the Kahoots, and then I'll go into demonstrating this project. And then we'll come back to these slides for the second part. So let me find the Kahoot that goes with this, which should be here. 127 L91. There it is. Good. All right. And so many different modules behind an HTTPD. The web security is more and more tough. Yes, absolutely. And that's why we're doing the Hacking Web Applications course, and it gets easy to hack because there are so many components interacting with each other, and each one of them has security flaws. There we go. Good. All right, we'll wait a few more seconds, see if more people are joining. All right, guess that's it. All right, so what process will find the correct server-side script to handle a request? That's routing. All right. Get is just what the old-fashioned way to fetch a static page. Routing is the process that reads the request and figures out what script it goes to. All right, so what part of this is the domain? That's it, of course, samsclass.info. That's the domain name. Good. All right. All right. Which one is a popular back-end framework? Django is back-end. The rest are all front-end. All right. All right. And which requests don't require any server-side scripts? Normal gets don't. In principle, your get could have parameters in it, but usually they don't. I guess in a modern app, even the gets might go through scripts, but they don't have to. All right, anyway, not sure I love that question much, but anyway, it's gets are the simplest requests. Although I think even they do use scripts in modern apps. So I got Luan. Let's see, I know who that is. And Luan, good. Good. So, I'm going to stop this recording and make a separate recording to demonstrate the project because I think it'll be easier for people to find them that way.